It's Jorden van Foreest versus Praggnanandhaa at the Tata Steel Masters 2025. It's the sixth round of the event and a very cool pairing. Because Jorden is known for some creative play in the opening stage of the game, while Praggnanandhaa is in the lead at this moment in the tournament. So this would be a very good opportunity for Pragg to even fight for the full point with the white pieces. He tries to start the clock, it takes a bit of time, and finally we are off. E4 played here by Jorden, and let's see what Pragg responds back with. He's thinking, and he pushes his pawn to c5. Jorden notes down the move there. The knight comes out to f3. And he puts his knight out to c6. Will Jorden push his pawn to d4 and go for the open Sicilian? No, he goes knight c3 for now, keeping the cards open. Knight f6, 4 knights on the board. Let's see how this goes further. Pragg gets up. You can go d4, you can go bishop b5. He pushes bishop b5. He pushes his bishop to b5. And now this is the Rosolimo with 4 knights. And this was also something that we saw yesterday in the live commentary with Daniel King coming in, and he spoke about how the knight on f6 and pawn g6 is very interesting. Here e5 is a very dangerous move. Yes, he plays it, pawn to e5. Now with the knight on c3, the d5 square is off limits. So knight g4 is the natural move, and then take, and eventually knight comes into the game this way. Praggnanandhaa takes his seat and decides to play knight to h5. Now this is a relatively lesser played move. This move has been played only 30 times or so, while knight g4 has been played more than 700 times. White castles. And black plays bishop g7, attacking the pawn on e5. Now you can take here, but then he would take back with the pawn, opening up the bishop. So that's the reason why Jorden now plays his rook to e1, just defending the pawn on e5. Pragg comes back. And the question is, do you have to be afraid of g4 trapping the knight here? Not really, because the knight does have the f4 square. The bishop is not yet opened. The pawn is on d2. So he goes knight d4, attacking the bishop, also looking at the knight on f3. And Jorden calmly plays d3, taking now the f4 square into control and threatening the move g4, which will trap the knight. So Pragg has to do something about it. What would he do? Oh, nothing. He does nothing. He castles here. Isn't g4 just trapping a piece? Whew. And also if you take on b5 next, I'm just taking back with my knight. Yes, he plays it. Pragg's knight is trapped on h5. And you can see the crowd gathering then. Erwin, Warmerdam, Nogerbeck, he pushes d5. Strong move. Because if you take gh5, I have bishop g4 pinning. So he pushes h3 calmly and says your knight is still trapped, my friend. Pragg goes a6. The reason why this move is possible is because the bishop is attacked, and when you take the knight, it attacks the knight as well. So the bishop comes back. And now Praggnanandhaa brings his knight back to e6. So both knights looking at f4, the knight will wriggle out. So you have to take the knight on h5. There's nothing else you can do, otherwise white is in some trouble. So takes on h5. And look at the number of players there. Everyone's crowded here. Everyone wants to see what's happening. Pawn to b5 played. And believe it or not, this is not yet anything new under the sun. This has been played before. Bishop b3. Now the d5 pawn is attacked. But the move that Pragg will play is c4. Yes, and the bishop is trapped here on b3, and Pragg gets back his piece, but h6, intermezzo, attacking the bishop now. The bishop has to move back to h8. Jorden just feels like having this pawn here is good for him. He takes the pawn on c4. And you can't take with the b pawn because then there is bishop a4. So you have to take it back with the d pawn. The bishop is trapped still. Queen takes queen. Rook takes queen. And now bishop takes c4. Pawn takes c4. And he brings his bishop out to e3. So if you count the pawns, white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, while black has 6 pawns. So white is a pawn up, but black's pieces are beautiful. You can see here he's attacking the knight now. The knight goes to g5. And it feels like Pragg is still in his prep. He's just taken 10 minutes on the clock. So has Jorden. Bishop takes on e5. Knight takes e6. Pawn takes. And now if you go bishop b6 attacking the rook and also the bishop, there is bishop c3 attacking the rook. So somehow that doesn't work. So he goes bishop g5 attacking the pawn on e7. And I believe Pragg should take on c3 because if bishop f6 going back, then take and e6 pawn is hanging. So he does take on c3 here. Pawn takes on c3. The e6 pawn is hanging and the e7 pawn as well. So you can defend both with your king coming up to f7. Rook b1. The rook tries to enter from the b file. Now even the number of pawns on the board are equal. But Jorden is claiming that he has small activity here because of his rook, which is ready to enter into b6. But I don't think it's anything substantial because the bishop is very well positioned on d5. So he does go rook b6. Attacking the pawn here on a6 and e6 is well defended, but a6 mainly. Pragg has to make a decision whether rook d6 or rook b8. He plays his rook to b8. A nice move, offering a trade of rooks. So goes rook b1. Pragg chops. Chops it here. And now to activate the rook is not easy because the a pawn is hanging and you don't want to give up the a pawn. So Pragg plays king e8 and this is a nice move because his idea is king d7, king c7 and get the rook out from there. So he plays king f1. Jorden's hope is that he can get his king into the position here, at least in a good space. King d7. Plays king e2. and king c7, attacking the rook. The rook comes back to b2. And here now, Pragg can decide between king d7, a more sort of passive way to defend because the pawn is hanging, or as he plays in the game, king c8, where he decides to give up this pawn on e7, but goes rook b8 and trades off the rooks when you have pure opposite colored bishop position. And I think what Pragg has neatly calculated here, by the way, Jorden comes up king e3, is that later when this pawn is attacked, and even if the king is ready to get in and take this pawn, he still has certain defensive ideas up his sleeve. Let's discuss that. If the position reaches there, he goes rook b8, which is the best move, trading the rooks. So takes rook. Pragg takes the rook now, king takes. King comes up to d4. It is coming into e5. From c5 it has no real way because I'm just going to block it. So Pragg goes king c7, bishop takes the pawn because the king was coming to defend it. And he goes king c6, he waits. And now this is the point. For example, first he goes h4, just blocking the pawn. If you go king e5, king f6, king here, all I have to do is make sure that when you take the pawn on h7, the black king is on f7. That should give me a draw. So let's just say if a3, I play my bishop back, you go here, I go here, you come here, I go here, you move your bishop, I wait, you go, I go, and you take here, I come here. This is a draw. There's no way to make progress. So bishop f1 played here by Pragg, bishop b4, and they agree to a draw because there's just no way to break through. And I would say this was a great opening prep by Pragg, showing that with the black pieces, a good preparation means that your opponent, even who is very talented and known for his opening prep like Jorden van Foreest, couldn't get anything. And this in some ways can look like, oh, Jorden is rated lower than Pragg and Pragg didn't get a chance. But at high level chess, making such a solid draw with black is an incredible result. So Pragg maintains his lead along with Nodirbek and Gukesh joining in.